Yo, what is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name's Luke. I'm coming at you today with my way too early top 15 quarterback rankings. Now, I've already done my way too early running back and wide receiver ranking videos, so if you haven't seen those, make sure to go check it out. Also, make sure to drop a like on the video. It helps out a ton. Subscribe to the channel. I got more of these coming and a bunch more content coming for the entire offseason. And also leave a comment. Let me know what you agree with, what you don't agree with. But let's get into the rankings. All right, the first three guys I think are pretty clear. The first guy I'm going to talk about is going to be Patrick Mahomes. He was a quarterback one this past year. He was the MVP of the season. He was MVP of the Super Bowl champion. Just did everything possible. Lost Tyreek Hill and was still able to do all of this. Just unbelievable. Honestly, too, the Chiefs are pretty young besides Travis Kelce, but I don't think he's getting worse anytime soon, so I'm not really too worried about that. Juju and McCole Hardman are both free agents, so there's a decent chance that they're both gone, so that's a little bit of a question mark. But I think Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore are both going to be able to improve, and a decent chance they bring in somebody else. So I'm not too worried about the weapons. I think it's just going to be another year of the same for Patrick Mahomes. There's a slight possibility with all of these accomplishments and all this hype that he might go a little bit too high, but I mean, at this point, I think having one of these elite quarterbacks could be a massive upgrade for anybody. All right, on to the quarterback two. I'm going to have Josh Allen here, who he did actually finish as a quarterback two this past season. He hurt his UCL like midway through the year, and he kind of struggled after that. But funny enough, his struggling was the quarterback two for the rest of the season. Before that injury, he was the quarterback one on the season, so you can't really stop him. You're going to have to take him out of the game if you want to. And I don't really think there's too much changing. It's just going to be a lot of the same. I think there's been some small rumors that Stephon Diggs might leave to go to the Cowboys to play with his brother, but I don't know if there's any real validity to those. So I think everything's pretty much going to be the exact same, so I would expect another top three season from him going forward. And the last guy who I think is in that elite tier, who's going to be a for sure top three quarterback this next year, is going to be Jalen Hurts, who was a quarterback three this past year, but the quarterback one in points per game. Basically, all of his offensive weapons are returning to A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. The only person who might leave is Miles Sanders, who I'm not too worried about with him leaving. They showed that they can kind of have anyone in the running back position, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, and they'll be just fine. So they could draft somebody relatively late too and replace him, and they'd be great. Also, Jalen Hurts runs the ball a ton, so I don't know. I'm not too worried about him leaving. The only slight concern is that their offensive coordinator left, so there could be some different schematic changes, but I don't know. I think that he's proven enough that he's going to be an elite option going forward for probably a while. Now at the quarterback four, I'm going to have Joe Burrow here. He was a quarterback four this past year in total points and points per game. I do think that his upside is relatively capped. I don't think he's going to be ahead of these three quarterbacks ahead of him no matter what, because he doesn't rush the ball quite the same way that they do. So it's pretty reliant on passing and passing touchdowns, and I just don't think he quite has that Patrick Mahomes upside. He does have some of the best weapons though, but there have been rumors about T. Higgins wanting way too much money, so there's a possibility they could trade him, which I think if that's the case, then it could hurt him slightly, but I don't see him dropping much lower than the quarterback six. But I have him here with both of the weapons. I got him here at the quarterback four. And at my QB five, we're going to have Justin Fields. This is where we start to have some more questions with the quarterback position. He finished as a quarterback six this past year and was quarterback five in points per game. The thing that could really hurt or help Justin Fields this offseason would be the weapons that they add. Right now, Darnell Mooney is the only wide receiver that they really have. They traded for Chase Claypool, but he was not very effective. Cole Kmet is decent, but they're going to need a real elite difference maker if Justin Fields wants to take that next step, like Jalen Hurts when he got A.J. Brown, Josh Allen when he got Stephon Diggs. That's the kind of difference maker that he needs to really take the next step. So depending on how that goes in this offseason, that could change his draft stock. But for right now, I have him in the QB five. I think he's shown enough that he's going to be an elite quarterback even without those weapons. He finished as a quarterback six this past year and showed his week winning ability. So I'm not too worried about him. I'm just wondering how high he can go, and we'll just have to see. Can't really tell right now, but I think he's going to be good no matter what. Then in my QB six, I have Justin Herbert here, who he had a really tough year this past year. I mean, he had most of his weapons like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. They were hurt a lot this year, which really hindered him. and he finished as a quarterback 11, which was really bad compared to where he was drafted. If you actually watch him though, you can still see he's one of the most talented QBs in the entire NFL. So I think he'll be just fine. He just needs to keep his weapons healthy and he'll be a great QB for fantasy. But we are going to have to see a little bit more consistency until he can be ranked any higher than this. All right, my quarterback 7, I'm going to have Lamar Jackson here. Another person with a ton of questions, mostly about his contract. We really have no idea what is going on there. And he was injured for a lot of this past year, which I'm sure did not help out his contract negotiations. But now we got to see if he's going to get franchise tagged, get traded, sign a long-term deal. At this point, I honestly have no idea. I think it could go really any way, and we're just going to have to wait and see. But we saw last year that he still has that super elite ability. He was the quarterback 6 in points per game while throughout this entire year, and throughout the first 3 weeks of the season, he was a quarterback 1. So wherever he goes, he's going to be great as long as he can stay healthy. If he stays in Baltimore, I imagine they'll get him some more receiving help, which is definitely what he needs. Rashad Bateman needs to stay healthy. But for right now, it's hard to put him any higher just given all those question marks, but still too good to pass up at this point. And then my quarterback 8, I'm going to have Trevor Lawrence here. He actually finished as the quarterback 8 this past year and was the quarterback 6 from week 6 and on. I think a big thing with him is just another year in this Doug Peterson system. We saw such a massive change from his first year to his second year, so I think that is going to help a lot, just another year in that system with his weapons. Also, we'll have Calvin Ridley this upcoming year, who is honestly one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. He is so good. We just kind of got to see if Calvin is still that same guy, but regardless, I think he's going to help Trevor Lawrence, who we'll see how fantasy relevant Ridley is, but it's definitely going to help out Trevor Lawrence. So I think he's going to be really good this upcoming year, and probably the last quarterback that I'm really comfortable having. After this point, it really gets a lot more murky. Basically, the rest of these quarterbacks coming up can almost be interchanged. If you feel some way strongly that one of these guys should be ranked higher going forward, let me know, because I think from this point on, it's a lot of question marks that could really interchange, or just kind of depending on your team build, if you want to stack somebody or want a little bit more upside, a little bit more safety, but it's really hard to tell past this point. I think those first 8 guys have a clear-cut line between that top and that bottom. So at my quarterback 9 for right now, I have Dak Prescott here. He was injured for a lot of the beginning of the season. He also struggled with a lot of turnovers once he was healthy. But once he was healthy from week 7 and on, he was quarterback 6 still. We also got to see CeeDee Lamb really break out to be that elite wide receiver 1 that we all hoped he could be. I do think, though, that they're going to add another wide receiver, given that Dalton Schultz is a free agent. Michael Gallup also really didn't show what we hoped he could be. So it's very likely that they added somebody. Another thing we're just going to have to wait and see, but Dak Prescott has definitely shown that he has really good fantasy upside, but there's definitely risk there. That's why he's here, but definitely could do a lot worse. And on to my quarterback 10, we're going to have Deshaun Watson here, who was not very good last year when he did play, which was from week 13 on. He was a quarterback 14. After that first week, though, so from week 14 on, he was the quarterback 12, so technically a QB1, but still not super good. But I mean, he hadn't played in almost 2 years, so it's pretty understandable. And now he'll have an entire offseason with the team to get integrated into the system, have reps, and hopefully that makes him, closer to what he was a couple years ago. But realistically, I don't think he'll ever quite get there. I mean, he was a top 5 quarterback every single year. And I don't think he'll get there again, or I would be ranking him up there, but I do think he'll be at least fantasy relevant. I got him here right now. I'm at number 10. But like I said, kind of these people could really interchange all the way to 15. So if you feel strongly one way, let me know, but I have him right here right now at number 10. And then quarterback 11, I'm going to have Tua Tagovailoa here, who had really elite stretches this year. He definitely helped me out in fantasy a lot, but he just kept getting injured with those concussions. And that is definitely something that I'm worried about going forward, because it just seems like it's something that is hard to avoid if you're already susceptible to them. But I guess it's just a situation we'll have to monitor. But given the system that he's in and the weapons that he does have, if he's playing, I think he's going to be at least a good floor quarterback that definitely has some upside that we saw. It's a little bit more reliant on his receivers to break big plays, but they definitely have that ability. So we'll have to see. I'm definitely just worried about those concussions and his injuries, but if he can stay healthy, he's going to be good. Then my quarterback 12, we're going to have Kirk Cousins here, who actually finished as a quarterback 7 this past year, which was really cool to see. He definitely had some really good stretches. Has arguably the best wide receiver in the league, which definitely helps out a ton. And Hawkinson was a super good addition midway through the year. especially with Adam Thielen kind of phasing out. They might cut him this upcoming year, so we'll have to see on that. But I think Kirk Cousins in this new system is going to be good enough where he'll at least be a streaming quarterback. And if you really need, like, if you can get him as your quarterback 2 in a lot of leagues, that'd be really good. But I just don't think he has that elite upside. Another person that's really dependent on his weapons to do stuff for him, but another person who has really good weapons. So definitely a good bet, probably a safe bet most weeks, but won't have that elite upside. Onto my quarterback 13 is Daniel Jones, who was a quarterback 9 actually this past year, with probably the worst receiving core in the entire NFL. I mean, there's nobody of name there. Wan'Dale Robinson was definitely their best, but he tore his ACL. Kadarius Toney got traded. Kenny Golladay does not exist basically anymore. And still Daniel Jones was the quarterback 9. He is very good at rushing the ball, and Brian Daboll is a great coach who knows how to use him really well. So I think that is only going to continue, and I do imagine that they're going to add pieces to the receiving core, which is obviously only going to help him. But, you know, how much can they really change in one offseason? It's hard to tell, but it's definitely going to be improved, I would imagine. It's almost no way that it couldn't be. He is asking for like $45 million right now. There's no way that he's going to get paid that, so we'll have to see what goes on there. But I do imagine that he's going to be back, just given what he's shown. I don't think he'll get more money somewhere else, but definitely going to have to see there. So if you go somewhere else, then that's going to be a whole different situation. But for right now, I got him here at QB 13. Moving on to the QB 14, who I do feel bad having this low because he finished as the QB 5 this past year, but it's going to be Geno Smith, who he was just really consistent. That's why he finished so high, just week over week, very consistent, not a lot of bust games, not a lot of massive explosion games, but always good to have somebody who won't kill you every single week. But just given that, you know, a little bit limited upside on a week over week basis, it's hard to have him a lot higher. But like I said, he could go as high as 9, but for right now I have him here, just given that I don't think he's going to be able to be a real difference maker. And at this point, I would just might be taking shots on people who I think could be a little bit higher value, who have more rushing upside like Daniel Jones, who have better weapons like Kirk Cousins and Tua, but I still think is going to be very valuable for fantasy going forward this year. Pretty much the weapons are going to be the exact same with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker. So I think that'll be basically the same, which is definitely good to have that continuity going forward, and is somebody that can move up a little bit higher depending on the situations ahead of him. But having that continuity is definitely nice. And the last quarterback I'm going to really talk about is at quarterback 15 is going to be Jared Goff, another person who had a really surprising good season this past year, finishing the quarterback 10. Another person who also has a lot of continuity coming back this year. One of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift. Going to have Jameson Williams for the entire offseason and season this year, who I can't wait to see him play. He's really good, but having all those young weapons in the same system with another year is only going to be beneficial for everybody. So I think there's going to be a lot of really good offensive production from this team going forward. If their defense does get better, then that actually could be bad for the offense. So we'll just have to see. Another person who I don't think has that super high upside, but is going to be somebody who's putting up points every single week and can definitely be a really good streaming option and great matchups. So there we have it. Those are my top 15 quarterbacks. Definitely some changes that are going to be made throughout the offseason as we get more information. I think that top 8 is pretty set there. Obviously, there could be some change in that top 8, but where they are, I think those are the guys. And then beyond that, there's just a ton of question marks that are definitely just super situationally dependent on your team build and what's going to happen with these teams in the offseason. There's also a couple honorable mentions that I want to make. Guys that aren't in this top 15, but I still think should be mentioned in this like quarterback landscape. So the first guy definitely going to be Kyler Murray. He's tore his ACL midway through this year, so I don't know when he'll be playing this upcoming year. But when he's playing, he's definitely somebody you're going to have to take notice of. If we get really good news that he's going to recover quickly, he could definitely move into the top 15. Just at this point, it doesn't seem like he'll be back for a while. Other people, Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and then possibly Trey Lance, depending on this whole Brock Purdy situation. But I think those guys all have possibility to be fantasy relevant this upcoming year. Let me know what you guys think. Should any of these people be in that top 15? Also, make sure to drop a like on this video. Helps out a ton. Subscribe. I got more content coming. The way too early top 15 tight ends will be coming shortly after this, so make sure you stay tuned for that. I have a bunch of other content coming too, so make sure you stick around. Going to be getting everybody ready for the season, all right? All right, catch y'all in the next one.